So, right, we are on. So, good afternoon, everybody. It's actually Monday and not Sunday, but we are pre-recording Michael C. Place from Studio.Build for the York Design Week and Bright Young Things Sunday sessions. And I'd like to welcome Michael to the Sunday sessions. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah.
Excellent.
Monday. Nice.
Yeah, it's a new start to a new week. It's actually the beginning of York Design Week, which is exciting. So we've kicked that off. Yeah. And yeah, really thankful and grateful for you to make time to do this, Michael. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Well, obviously, I don't know if you know, I went to York College for 2 years to do my OND in graphic design. So yeah,
great.
I have a bit of history with York, so I'm always really keen to, you know, and since kind of moving back up north from London, kind of very keen to get involved in, you know, kind of northern stuff and really kind of push and promote. So whatever I can do to show what an amazing, you know, kind of city and cities and region that have got incredible talent is I'm really happy to do. So yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure. I think you know, you're definitely part of a great bunch of speakers for the Sunday sessions, which is awesome. I think, you know, you're probably one of the more well-known people, but in terms of the you know, in due respect, you've been part of the graphic design scene for a very long time. So you know, lots to kind of make the most of from this session. But I think really excited to be sharing this presentation in terms of maybe not what people would expect. You know, when we initially chatted, I think it's great that you're not necessarily defaulting to the typical presentation of work, and you know, interestingly seen some of your social on Insta in particular, and you getting out and about during lockdown. So I don't want to steal your thunder, but looking forward to looking at a different perspective, I think, and that's exciting.
Definitely. Well, this is it's all just going to show personal work that I've done since this whole thing kicked off, and just sort of really how I fill the time in, how I've been, you know, really thinking about things and kind of life, and might get a bit heavy in places, but it's something that I've always kind of been, is kind of very much wear my heart on my sleeve. And this is a completely new talk, and probably a lot of people would have seen nothing of this apart from the stuff that I've shared on Instagram. So I'm just going to kick off. So
thank you.
Yeah, so hello, I'm Michael, and I'm 51 years of age, and so I've been a professional graphic designer for 30 years, and with age, I think kind of comes, I've started to really think about sort of life, and, you know, kind of really, you know, I think the older I get, the more I think about how, you know, journeys and things, you know, kind of paths taken. And I have a lot more questions than answers, and this might be a bit of a doobie for a Sunday, but I've been thinking a lot about life and a lot about death, and one of the biggest questions I have is how will I die, and that's kind of, I think, really come about since my dad died a few years ago, and that sort of really made me think about life. And it's really kind of, it's a very kind of poignant time, and kind of very, you know, kind of scary time, and sort of a very sad time, but kind of also kind of, it really has made me reflect on life. So a few facts. I was born in Yorkshire. My mum was a nurse. She's still around, but going strong. My dad was a pig farmer, so we've got no background at all in our family of graphic design. I've got 3 older sisters, Joanne, Carol and Claire, and I live in Otley and work in Leeds with Nikki, my wife. So we met during, sort of work. I was doing work at Designs Republic on Wipeout, and Nikki was the lead artist there, and we met, and we live and work together. I'm asthmatic. I run a studio, so the people who have no idea, so I run a studio, as Owen said, and we employ 3 people, Ellie, Eleanor and Nicole, and that was great, you know, everything was fantastic. And then, as we know, this happened, COVID-19. So the country shut down, and I started walking. That's as simple as that. I'd kind of, I wasn't the most healthy person, I think. I kind of probably living, like I say, I'm 50, 51. And I think I was living like I was in my 20s, you know, sort of not a particularly healthy person, and had a few, as kind of said before, I'm asthmatic, and sort of had a really scary asthma attack, ended up in hospital not so long ago. And that sort of really made me think about health and kind of, again, life, and with my dad. And we had 2 beautiful cats, those died. So I had this real kind of horrible, you know, I had this run of really, it's not bad luck, but just, yeah, I went through some really tough times, and found that walking's been something that I've really enjoyed. And I take photos when I go out walking. I'm not saying they're anything special, but they're just, it was a means for me to kind of like document, you know, what I was doing. And, you know, we live in this incredible countryside in Otley in West Yorkshire. And my pictures tend to be very ordinary scenes, things that I really enjoy, that very rarely are there people. It's kind of, my walking's kind of, for me, is 99% of the time is a solitary thing. It's something I had to do by myself. I just literally put my boots on and go walking, and just sort of pick a route in the morning, and then just walk. And it's just been for me, a real revelation, really. And, you know, like I said, it's like, for me, there's just this real wonder about the world. So I'm really thinking about the world, and sometimes it's incredibly beautiful. You know, this is just outside of Burley. So this is 7 or 8 kilometers in from our house. So then, like I say, just really mega ordinary scenes. So maybe this is a bit of a graphic designer in me, you know, sort of road markings, to really beautiful things that I find incredibly poetic and incredibly beautiful and interesting. Things that some people will probably just literally walk past. There's some of the stuff that I really, really enjoy. And I always think as a designer, it's just, it's your view on the world, how you view the world. So these are pictures that I've just taken around the area, just on walks, so industrial north. So yeah, for me, just like, I don't know, just really beautiful moments. And I love the idea of just capturing this little point in time that could potentially just go. And I really enjoy, it's just all the act of walking and thinking. And I always find that when I walk, and this sort of, you're out in the countryside or wherever, it kind of really frees my mind. And I think that's been something that I really have found real value, as well as kind of being, you know, kind of for a large degree, it's kind of, it's been really great for my mental health. It's also, yeah, just this opportunity to see the world in a kind of different way. And like I say, just very ordinary scenes to just, yeah, things of real, you know, things that just fascinate me. You know, it's like a bunch of garages, but I just find the juxtaposition between this incredible countryside to then these pebble dashed garages, and what goes on in those garages, who knows, you know, it's all little stories, you know. Yeah, I mean, what happened on that sofa, you know, it's yeah, it's little stories, you know. You could also shudder as well, but I shudder to think. But yeah, just little moments of little snippets of things that I find really, really fascinating. And then, yeah, so I'm not a fair weather walker. I walk in all conditions, and in some ways, I prefer it when it's chucking it down. I like, for me, it's that I never feel more alive than when I'm soaked through in the middle of a countryside. It's just a really wonderful, wonderful feeling. So I've started to now walk in the dark as well. because obviously the nights are drawing in. And as I walk, I think about a lot of things, kind of whether it's my dad or, the cats, or Nikki and I, or my mum, kind of what's going on in the world. And yeah, I kind of had this thought about, okay, so when COVID happened, lockdown started, the studio output just went, we had, like, I would imagine probably 80% of the work just went, everybody quite rightly was very, worried about the situation. We had to furlough everybody, and people are now coming back, which is great. But it was tough and really hard. And Nikki and I, I think like a lot of business owners literally just had to keep going. You just literally, it's a slog. And we said that we never felt we'd worked so hard to almost be standing still. And that's what it felt like. It was this limbo, basically. But then Nikki's kind of been fantastic. She's kind of said to us, you really should, get out and, I hadn't done any kind of, I used to do quite a lot of self-initiated stuff and really enjoyed it. And then I just had this period of just not doing anything, kind of really just focusing on the commercial work. We're a commercial design studio. We work for clients, and we work with, a huge range of kind of big brands, international brands, to sort of smaller clients. And yeah, I'd kind of forgotten how great it is to do some self-initiated stuff. So I've been doing a lot of walking, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and taking a lot of photographs, and had a lot of thoughts going on in my head about what I could do. So I thought to myself, I needed to make something. I wanted to make sense of what's going on, make sense of, in some ways, kind of what's going on in my head and life, and what's happened in the past, just to make something. So I had this, I just love the idea that art and what I've done, I would not call art. I don't know what it is, but I love the idea of art being the ultimate expression of a selfish act. And I think that's wonderful, kind of, and I love, well, actually I love hate. I have a real love-hate kind of relationship with design, graphic design. And kind of really client work isn't about being selfish, it's about being very open and kind of inclusive. And I just thought to myself, I kind of lost that real nice feeling of just doing something purely for myself. And that's what, just a pure selfish desire to create. And that's what I've always really enjoyed, is creating things, making things. I always think design is this wonderful thing that you can basically, out of our minds, becomes these very tangible things. And I think that's really wonderful. But I was wanting to do something really selfish. So I sort of started doing some work, and I said to myself, everything I do will be done to satisfy myself and no one else. It's purely for me, absolutely. And if anybody else likes it, that's a bonus, and that's amazing, and I love that. But I just did this purely for me. And I kind of thought to myself, is it design, is it art? Because I don't draw, kind of, I'm very much kind of, my tools are graphic design. It's type, it's pictures, it's photography, it's how all those things come together, and architecture and all the life, basically. So, is it art, is it design? I don't know. I guess maybe that's a question for the end, and for people, I'd love to, know what people think. But the big thing for me is, does it make me happy? That's really important. And this is me looking very happy, soaked through on a walk, a few months ago, just chucking it down, but just real joy. I look at that photo and I go, no, you look really happy there, and it's amazing, But it is that real sense of being alive, and being out in nature and being out in the world, and sort of not sat at my computer. And so it's a complete this like complete opposite to what my life was post COVID, you know, which was I would get up, have breakfast, whatever, go to the studio, come back, have some tea, go to bed, and it was that. And it's this, and all you're thinking about is studio work, and not really doing, you know, the things that I said to myself when we moved back up north that I would do. And I fell into the same trap. I just moved up. We got this beautiful house in the middle of the countryside, and yet all I did was just get in the car, go to work, come back, stare at a fucking screen for hours, and then, you know, repeat.
Michael, can I just ask?
Morning, everybody, from the top of the shed-in.
Just really wonderful. Just really, you know, just fantastic. So this is a video of me, yeah, on top of the shed-in. And again, just kind of, for me, just a real joyful moment, you know.
Michael, can I just ask, how long have you been up in Yorkshire now then? So how long?
Yes, we've been 5 years, I think it is now. And we had the studio down in London for 15 years. So yeah, we were down there we started it down there, just thought it'd be easier to kind of, to run a studio, start a business down in London, and I think it was. But I'd always wanted to come back north. You know, I'm from Yorkshire. I used to work as Design Public in Sheffield, and really loved it. And then yeah, just came back, and it's just.
What you choosing? Obviously, kind of West Yorkshire. I mean, I'm not kind of Yorkshireist in terms of, you know, passion. I've been here since late 80s, you know, as a family. We moved up here, but I went away and came back again.
Yeah.
I mean, without the term coming home, obviously you made that distinct decision. And why did you choose West Yorkshire? Is it the range of the countryside? Is it, you know, was it about the property itself? What was it about?
It was a bit of both, really. So all my family's in North Yorkshire. So all my sisters live there still. My mum is there still. And they're like, so they'd hate me for saying this, but I want it to be close, but not too close.
Not too close. So they couldn't just pop round.
No, exactly. And I think Leeds is really interesting. I think it's a brilliant city, and there's a lot of really great stuff happening there. But yeah, I wanted something we wanted somewhere where there's a bit going on naturally, and I always like the city to kind of get my brain going. You know, I think it's really important to have stuff that's flying around. So yeah, West Yorkshire. We used to come to Otley, and we lived in Leeds before we went travelling. So this was, I don't know, 20 years ago, something like that. And we used to come to Otley just to go out in the countryside. So we used to live in Leeds and then come out to Otley. And I never ever thought that I'd end up living in Otley at all, which is, for anybody who doesn't know Otley, it's a small market town.
It's beautiful though. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's got about 20 pubs in about half a square mile. So
you can't argue with that.
It's bonkers. But yeah, so yeah, sort of came back, and yeah, so it's just brilliant to be out in the countryside, and that's what's been really driving this body of work, the stuff that I'm going to talk about. So every piece has I'm a graphic designer, every piece has a catalogue number. So this one's, for this talk, it's got its own, so it's titled Redemption. So I feel that it's been really, walking's been a bit of a saviour for me, I think, from lots of perspectives, from a health to a mental state, to just getting down a lot of stuff that have been in my head for years, you know, kind of like very personal stuff, but it's just been a real outpouring of, you know, of thoughts and notions, and it's just been wonderful. I just think walking is just, that simple act of just getting out and walking has really unlocked a lot of really interesting stuff. So I'm going to talk about 5 projects. So chorus, scene, multiples, in silence, and the first one is everything. So when I started off doing this sort of work, I started off with In Silence, and that was a direct reference to, that's when I walk by myself. I don't wear headphones or anything like that. I just love to immerse myself in the surroundings. So I'm going to talk about In Silence in a minute, but in typical kind of graphic design fashion, everything I thought was really valuable to do. So I produced the piece of work for In Silence already, and then just thought to myself, I really need something. So everything's M1, and I just needed to just bring everything back and write some rules, etc. So I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a second. So everything to M2, which is In Silence, to M3, which is multiples, kind of very different pace, to M4, which is scenes. I'm really interested in writing, and I've always been interested in writing, and I want to do more writing. And my writing's kind of very, it's not pretty. I just really enjoy, it's just stuff that's in my head. I just put down on paper, and I'm really not precious about things like this. I think there's something really nice about it having I always find that the best design or the most interesting things are things that aren't perfect. I really enjoy things that have a little bit of humanity in them, you know. And Chorus, which is I've done for my dad, which is a very super poetic piece, but I'm going to talk about that further on. So everything, yeah, so everything's this weird one where I thought to myself, right, shit, I'm doing this work, I need some rules, you know. It's typical graphic designer. So I said to myself, okay, I'm going to set some rules. So everything will be made using words, color, typography, systems, photography, shapes, nature, iconography, and film. And I don't know about you, but Owen, but I really, as a designer, the worst brief for me is if somebody says, do what you want. I like to have something that you can hang off, you know, and I think that makes for much more interesting creative work. You know, you have to, within limits, you know, but I don't see them as kind of, you know, a noose around my neck. I don't see them as a yoke. I see them as a really freeing thing. So yeah. So I'm huge into typography, so everything is just two typefaces. That's all I'm ever going to use. So they're both ones that I love. So there's this one, which is, it's the car number plate. It's the UK car number plate font that I've redrawn and customized. And I love the idea of using something so ubiquitous and ordinary. How can you then use it in a really beautiful way? And then the other one, which is all the sort of stuff on the right, is transport medium. So it's Mark Calvert. And I realise that they're two automotive kind of things. But that's not, I'm not a big petrol head or anything like that. But I just really love, especially transport, which you see it everywhere. You know, it's on every sign. You know, all the road signs, etc. It's just, I just love it. And I just like the idea of using things that are so ordinary. And for me, it's how you can make those things speak in different ways that I really enjoy. But I just wanted to just really, yeah, it's just rules, you know. Iconography and systems, I just love that stuff, you know. And I think this has kind of come from working at Design Republic. I think just this idea of reusing stuff. So when we were there, I really got into this, and this was a credit to Ian and Nick, who started it, you know, kind of, it was this everything's fair game. Everything that when we were there, we would nick logos from other companies and use them. And, you know, just for me, design isn't about purism. It's about everything is fair game. If I want to use 100 typefaces on one project, I will. I'm not a master of Vignelli where it's like, you can only use 3 typefaces throughout your career, and I think that's a load of shit, even though I'm also now saying only use 2 typefaces. But systems, you know, I just love all, you know, all this incredible, like, you know, stuff that's so ubiquitous and beautiful. And how can I use it in a different way? So then words, I just love words, you know, sort of the scale of stuff. So playing with scale. and just really beautiful words, you know, kind of really ordinary words, but have this immense kind of meaning. Systems, you know, a huge kind of into print. And I love the idea, the CMYK process and how much you can do, which is just 4 different colors printed on top of each other, create so many different variations. So these are just kind of 2 simple versions of how this system works. And it's just what you can get from a simple system can create infinite kind of variation. So these are all things that I'm hoping to explore as I kind of go on this journey of work, the work that I'm doing. And then words and images, just for me, kind of, I love real clashes of things. I really enjoy that something that's incredibly poetic and beautiful, then you whack a big, horrible, brutal thing on top of it. I just love a juxtaposition of things, and it's just kind of how my brain works. Yeah. And then, you know, found stuff, ready-mades, I just really enjoy, again, kind of appropriating. These are just archaeological measures. And I just really enjoy, you know, what would happen if I take them and I put that on something else. And it's just, again, it's that trying to find, you know, again, not being precious about stuff, about, you know, how can I mash these 2 things together and what comes of this thing, you know. It's something that I've really enjoyed, down to Lettertone as a kid. I collect letter sets, so I'm massively into that. And then it's like, how can you put these 2 things together and it creates just something really powerful, I think. So the symbol on the left was, we had a holiday in Spain. We're in this villa and we used to go down this really lovely long track, and there was this sign on the side of the road, which was just literally a square divided into 4 with 2 black squares. And I was like, what the hell is that? But apparently it means it's a private path. So for me, those things, I love those things. I love that you've got this beautiful traditional, you know, flowers out of our garden, and you have this really super graphic thing, you know. It's just the kind of tension between the 2 is really fascinating. Again, to systems, just the roundel, you know, the RF roundel, you know, all these infinite variations on such a simple idea that is so graphic. It's just genuinely just is a real feel. This is one of my, I think, all-time favorite pieces of design. It's just beautiful, you know. But these are just observations, you know. It's like the Navy flag, you know, you start to draw the Union Jack, and how it's just an incredible piece of design. Everything's positive and negative space, and how it's all divided up is just wonderful, you know. So all these things are things that I want to bring into work. And then, yeah, words. So Long Journey to the Light, you know, is me thinking about, you know, life and death, obviously going through the thing with my dad. And then True Love Is Here is a direct reference to being back in Yorkshire and kind of this sense of place. And I love that. I really love, you know, how the landscape, you know, can really, you know, really craft and really inform your being. You know, I love the whole kind of Yorkshire attitude. I love the northern attitude, you know, this really incredible sort of no nonsense, get stuff, you know, doing stuff, you know, and I really love that. But again, kind of just really poetic, but the way that the 2 can be jumbled together is just, yeah. But then it's in the car number plate font, you know, it's just these really lovely messages. But yeah, and this was, again, was kind of, I thought we'd have more time, was a very direct kind of reference to my father, you know, sort of, I thought we would, you know. I think everybody does. But yeah, it's all those things kind of, I want to just try, and I just wanted to get the first one down about how can I use all these things that I really enjoy. Maybe this is more design, but then I think the output becomes something else. And I think they're almost kind of very design elements, but how can we, how can I use those things and create something that's, for me, is my own visual language, or the way that I can kind of visualize what I'm thinking, and that's literally by words, but then also how I put things together. So
Michael, have you found yourself kind of fighting a little bit at times with your kind of professional influence? Obviously, the way that you've taught yourself, the things you've learned, and almost stopping yourself from doing the typical thing that you might do on a client project. And you're almost unpacking those things. Clearly, you're putting systems in place and the things that you love doing. Because I instantly see, you know, some of the influences that you've already talked about in your work, in your personal work. Are you fighting, or does it feel more natural and it almost you're breathing now to kind of?
I think it's the latter, definitely. You know, a lot of things like, you know, kind of, I thought we'd have more time, are very literal. It's a something that I've had in my head that's on paper now, you know, that it feels like I've said it. You know what I mean? It's sort of, I've never really even said it to my dad, you know. But those things feel very, feels like, it is kind of like almost breathing. You're right, it is almost kind of like, I've got it down on paper now, you know. Not necessarily move on, and I don't see these things as baggage, emotional baggage, you know. I'm very much, you know, open about, you know, what happened with my dad and the relationship with my dad, and, you know, kind of all those very personal things. It just felt like, you know, definitely, you know, as my first thing is like, if nobody gets this or nobody is interested, I genuinely don't care. It's purely for me, it's my, it's unpacking, you know. It's like it's a really interesting point. It's like I've done it, you know. It's kind of
an outlet.
Absolutely, 100%. So In Silence is definitely that. Like I say, this is the first one I did, and it was really about walking and kind of, you know, all the things in my head about life, family, relationships, you know, the world. And it is, like I said, just in direct reference to sort of, I see walking as 99% of the time as a solitary act that I genuinely enjoy. I love the silence of it. I like that it's just nature, and I just have music playing all the time when I'm working. That's what I really enjoy. Music's a big passion as well, but just the notion of this very simple thing of putting one foot in front of the other, and the stuff that you see and what that opens up is really, for me, has been really powerful. And this is all credit to Nikki. So Nikki, my wife, so she really pushed me into doing this. So you really need to do, you know, maybe I wasn't particularly happy or whatever, you know, this is a kind of you need to get this stuff out of your head, you know. And she really pushed me to do it. So the first one was definitely for Nikki. And so I read this: bucolic estates of pastoral modernism in the West Riding, life, death, belonging, Burris, Granville, Western, on and on. Rombalds, jacked cars, youth, England flags, tarmac, the north, base bins, green bins, pride, angst, on footpaths I think of you, always always in fields I think of you. So this is kind of just some of the things that I see as I walk around. It is this, I like when I write things that might not make a lot of sense. It's just like, if I see a sign that says give way, I like to put that stuff in. It might be a reference from a song that I just put in. So they feel quite disjointed, and I really like that. For me, it feels very poetic, and it is. I hate the term stream of consciousness, but it is that. And it isn't perfect, and I think that there is that, you know, real beauty in not being perfect, but it's very personal. And these are just the things that, it's almost like an introduction to this idea of, as I'm walking around, these are the things I think about, and they naturally, a lot of the times, do come down to people, or, you know, like family, Nikki, stuff that's going on, you know. Doubts and fears, you know, this was kind of very much, you know, I think we're all going through a lot of this now, you know, kind of I quickly realized that, you know, as humans, we we do need, you know, other humans and contact. And I think that being removed, you know, I can't, you know, I was talking to my mum yesterday, and it's weird, you know, I've not hugged my mum for like since March or whatever. How weird is that? You know, so there's all this stuff that we're all collectively going through now. And I know that it's going to get, I think there's going to be a big fallout of kind of mental health. And obviously there's a lot of people going through some really tough times, but yeah, I have, you know, like everybody else, doubts and fears, you know, what's going to happen, you know, is the studio going to go bust because everything's, you know, there's lots of, you know, thoughts going on, down to, you know, simple things about my dad and Brockman, my cat, was a beautiful Sphinx cat. I miss, you know, I miss our embrace and your warmth. So these are all just, yeah, around Otley, just doing walks, just sometimes just really, for me, really beautiful things, coupled with, you know, notions that are going on in my head, you know, from certain paths. I do this thing now, which I really enjoy, is if I see like a new path or a footpath, I'll just take it. And it's that notion of like, I will go down that path. And if I get lost, I get lost, and it's ace. You just literally, I'm out, and I just go, oh, I've never been down there. So all these sometimes kind of very overgrown paths, you know, very rarely trodden, just become this real adventure. And I just genuinely love this idea of exploring and sort of, yeah, seeing what's at the end of that path. You know, where's it going to lead? You know, where's it going to take me? Just really wonderful, you know, kind of then going through these, you know, real scales of kind of like, I'm okay, I feel like shit, I'm empty, to being really alive, you know, to being, you know, this real, I think there's been this real, I found this real kind of like dips and dives of like, everything's going to be great. And then it's like, oh my God, this is horrific, you know. So these are just moments and thoughts down to this wonderful day where Nikki and I went out walking, and we were going across this big field, and it absolutely slung it down, and we sought shelter under this tree. And that was just, for me, I needed to put that down on paper, and just, again, it's a wonderful memory, really nice, you know, just sort of, again, I just feeling alive is just genuinely like life affirming, you know, this idea about being out and, you know, freer is just really powerful for me. And then just, yeah, just little things, is that you know, this one little junction, and why most people will probably just completely pass that by, but I see some real beauty in it, you know. It's so ordinary, but I find something really fascinating about it. How did that wall fall down? Why is that? What is that sign saying? You know, so these all very ordinary. Yeah, I just really enjoy these little, like I call them these little scenes. You know, they're just little snapshot of time. You know, that potentially is going to be lost. Yeah, so again, just kind of probably more about journey than anything else, and kind of, you know, in or out. Yeah, just nice. This was a near-death experience. So this was early on in lockdown, walking through a field, got surrounded by about 20 big bulls, and actually it was really touch and go. It was horrific. I ended up perched on a wall with about 20 bulls becoming more and more agitated around me absolutely bricking it. And this is the longitude and latitude of that particular that exact spot where I thought I was going to die, genuinely. And I've now got so much respect for cattle, genuinely. Like I've also been chased by a bull through a field during this whole thing. It's yeah, the 3 words "bull in fields" genuinely
new meaning.
Heed those words. Yeah, definitely. It's not, they're not playing, you know. Yeah, and then yeah, that sofa that we saw, you know, earlier, you know, just sort of thinking about the life of it and not just passing it by and just going, that looks a load of crap, you know. It's just what's happened there? What, you know, for me, there's all these questions.
That picture really fascinates me, Michael, I think, because somebody's had the care to wrap it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
exactly.
then,
yeah.
But like you said a minute ago, you know, what happened? Was it sinister? Was it just, you know, they'd thrown it out, but they thought that maybe somebody else could use it? It's quite bizarre.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
And then that playfulness of the joy of.
Yeah. So these are just all, you know, this is a path that I found that I just thought, I've never been down there. I'm just going to go see what's there, you know. And it is this exploration I found that I've really enjoyed in seeing these little moments. For a lot of people, are incredibly ugly, or something that you would pass by. But there's something about them that I find really, really fascinating, and it's documenting them and thinking about them. And that's what this is kind of all been about. And again, kind of that juxtaposition of being really tired, but really free, you know, that those two things feel really wonderful, feel very opposite, but intrinsically linked. And then that's just the sort of end one of In Silence. So that was the start of this work, and kind of, I don't know, just making sense of what's around me and the world and what I'm thinking. So then I did multiples. So this is kind of, again, kind of very different. So this was more of a kind of similar themes in terms of this kind of sometimes quite, you know, constant, I read abstraction, crushing, time moves, sitting still, layers and layers and years of doubt weighing on my mind, a constant pressure, dense blackness, uncomfortable, heavyweight, oppressive, solid, unforgiving, brutal density. But this is also the beautiful tipping point where a form becomes unrecognizable and becomes something else altogether. And I have this weird thing when I walk. I have these. I'm quite good at mental arithmetic, and I have these things where I do sums in my head all the time, and I just keep doing them. And I have this really repetitive thing where I'll think of something, whether it's a maths thing or something. It just keeps going on, and I have the same conversation going on in my head. So this was kind of a direct kind of piece based around that, but also kind of the thoughts and kind of the fairly dark moments, you know, sometimes going through. I think the death of my father's genuinely affected me very deeply. I think about him a lot, and sort of going through moments of kind of real, just tough times. But I just really like these really strong, heavy, dense, you know, kind of forms and compositions, just from, again, kind of just overlaying what is basically a monospace font, but how they can really change and feel really, you know, that's dark, you know, DARK overlaid, just feels really wonderful. So I just got really obsessed about, you know, how we can put these things together and how they change just by, you put two things on top of something and the forms become very different, and have this real density that I really was really fascinated by. So this is Me and You Forever, you know, just sort of, again, just sort of really, I really love these pieces. Just, it is very graphic design, but maybe it's just, this is darkness, you know, just the two, I find them really wonderful. Again, kind of just hope and hate, just really simple messages or things that kind of got, you know, thoughts that are going on in my head. That I just really, you know, layers and layers and layers of, you know, thought and abstract thought and real thought, and repeat and repent, you know, just this idea of stuff just constantly going on, you know. Sometimes I'm sure a lot of people I started off this thing where I did get really quite anxious, and I think that was my health was a big thing. Went through a lot of anxiety issues, and that definitely stemmed from the asthma attacks, where I ended up phoning an ambulance and getting sent to hospital for it. And I've had asthma all my life. I've never really seen it as even though it is a very serious life-threatening condition, I've never really seen it as that. And I think since I had that episode, it's really made me think, and I went through a real big stage of being incredibly anxious. And as I said, that kind of this walking thing's been really good because it's, I've lost a lot of weight.
Michael, when did you have your asthma attack that took you to hospital?
Yeah, that was summer last year.
So quite recent in that sense, because obviously I can relate to that quite well, in the sense that I've had asthma most of my life, but because of doing sport, I was able to manage it in effect. But it coupled with hay fever, it didn't do too well. So that kind of affected me for a good couple of years, and then smoking for a little bit, when I was at uni, with drinking and all that kind of stuff. And you're right, the management of your weight and things like that suddenly then gets you in a position that you almost think you're well, not a superhero, but you're okay, and then suddenly you end up in hospital and you're kind of thinking, how on earth did I get here?
Definitely, it was a horrible, genuinely horrible period of time, and and the real fallout of that was anxiety, and really being worried about so much, like and mine was triggered by pollen and stuff like that as well. It was horrible, but just again, kind of just all these kind of thoughts. Is it going to happen again? Am I going to get it now? I go through, like after that, post that, sort of just thinking it's going to come on. And when you think it's going to come on, it does, and it gets worse. It's this horrible vicious circle, isn't it? It's horrible. Genuinely is. And you forget your inhaler, and then that's just like the worst.
Your chest is constantly getting tighter and tighter.
It's brutal, it genuinely is. So this was kind of, very much that anxiety, kind of trying to get through anxiety and all the things that feel like they're just weighing on top of me. And then, just literally just trying to, how can I put that down, in some form that kind of makes sense to me, and all the things kind of going on in my head over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So that was multiples, and then I went on to do scenes. So this is kind of much heavier writings. It's a real, I wanted to try and do kind of a real nice balance of photography and writing, but mainly writing. So these are all things that I've written about that are in direct response to a particular photograph. So these are all, so I get up early, I make coffee, I drink my coffee, I put on my shoes, open the door and I walk. It's that simple. I turn left or right out of the door and I walk. I've seen things on highways, paths, footpaths, bridleways, over fields and valleys. I walk, moving forwards. And I've seen things, ordinary things, beautiful things. Are they less ordinary because we call them ordinary? Why are they deemed ordinary? These are the things that I find extraordinary, quiet moments, chance encounters, and things that I've seen. So these are kind of, it's all about this, my writing about how I just literally, it's like this weird kind of, it's almost kind of a William, what's he called? William Burroughs? No, not William Burroughs. He's a guy who's like cut and paste. And I just really almost think of it. He's like, if I see something, I'll write it. And then all those things put together become quite interesting. So 3 heaps of gravel, 1 out of frame, again, kind of, it's, I love it. I just came across this, I was walking down this path and there's these 3 heaps of gravel that I think's just genuinely beautiful. I was like, wow, just like got home just like so excited by it, and then just writing pieces around those things. So small thoughts, big ideas. Time passes by, a thought forms in my head. Sometimes it sticks, sometimes it's gone, like a fallen leaf caught in current, falling, floating. I could try and catch it, but sometimes it's good to let things go. And yeah, I think it is that sort of time to really think, and then, you know, think about the things that are important, the things that aren't. Sometimes these small thoughts become really massive ideas, and I think that for me has been walking's been really fascinating, and it's enabled me to do so much thinking around, you know. And I've just been thinking about time. Time's been a big thing, so I've been thinking a lot about time lately, spending time thinking about time passing by as I think about it. Time is money, time is a luxury I don't have. Time for change, time to go. Time waits for no man, time is running out for us all, the inevitable march of time, a sequence of events, years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, seconds, decay, delay, delaying, stop. So yeah, just really, and sometimes quite bleak things, and then I look at things like this, which is life, and I just get so, it's a real positive, you know, so much life in such a small area. You know, I look at them and I just see these little worlds, you know, and I just genuinely love these little moments where, you know, you just stop. And I think that's the modern world. I always say the modern world is rubbish. And I really, sometimes really do. It's shit, isn't it? You know, and sometimes it's just good to stop, you know. And I think that's I think that's been a real lesson, that all this stuff that we're going through has kind of taught me. But then also this lesson from doing this work is to actually just stop and appreciate something. Is really wonderful. Something that's really simple, you know. Is we all lead these really complex lives, don't we? And it's just, I just found it, this reconnection with the area around me and the countryside, and you know, has been really beneficial, and something that I've found really important. It's been a really important part of, you know, kind of learning and what I've been doing with this work. Yeah, so yeah, it's just more writing around this birth, work, school, death, you know, kind of. So
just in terms of your process, Michael, because there's so many questions whizzing around, and I know we chatted just before we got going on the recording about kind of, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to be able to just capture some of it.
Yeah.
In terms of your process, obviously, clearly your mind is a very powerful thing, and you're trying to get some of this down, and you can see that in what you're doing.
Yeah.
How are you shooting on your iPhone? Are you shooting with a camera, like specific camera? Is it, are you noting things down or relying on your memory to get it down?
It's pure phone. So I've got a better phone now, which I'm quite happy with. And then it's, just stuff that I'll just write and think in my head. I don't write anything down. It's just in my head. And then literally just really with these, it's just I set down a block and literally just go, right, I'm just going to write. If like with this piece, it's like, I'm just going to have half a page or a page. And it is just literally, it's just typing and typing till it empties out my head. And then it's done.
Do you edit it then, or do you leave it?
A little bit, but only more for punctuation and stuff like that, you know. But equally, I'm really not precious about this. I always say to myself, this probably isn't going to be the last thing I ever do. So I'm kind of very unprecious about, I'm very much a person who goes, right, that's done. I'm going to leave that. I'm just really happy with it. Move on to something else, you know, and if it isn't perfect, it's fine. If somebody finds fault with it, it's fine. Or if I, you know, think it's a bit crap, I'm fine, it's fine with me, you know. It's more about the act of perhaps getting it down and what's going on that I really, the processes I genuinely enjoy. The writing I really enjoy, you know. It's just a really nice release, you know, from just doing stuff that's generally very visual to writing. And I think as designers, I think writing's really important. You know, how can we, you know, relay what we've got going on in our heads, or an idea, you know, you need to be able to do that, you know. So, you know, I always think, I was looking at this the other day, and I think it's really, really important and really, really poignant. And I'm hoping that nobody else has said it, but death, the full stop of life. I think, you know, it's just a really, really, really like, I think about death a lot. I really do. But yeah, I mean, that's, now you're probably seeing why, you know, the fact of that kind of cows, dad, asthma, you know, so all those things. And then stuff like this, again, it's kind of, I'd say poignant a lot, but I really find things like this scene really wonderful. And the idea that we as humans are inhabiting this world and we're putting all this stuff on the world, but essentially nature will win out. So I love this idea that we've got this dry stone wall, but suddenly, obviously, the trees just growing and growing. Eventually, it's just pushed the wall over. And I love the notion of nature's just going to keep going. And I think about that a lot. You know, when we're all gone, it's going to be reclaimed again. You know, and what that world is going to look like is mind blowing, but really, really fascinating. But there is something, this tension, you know, for me there that I think is great. You've got the man-made and you know, nature, and those two coming together. And I've called it the inevitable passage of time, you know, and it's that, you know, it's almost like nature's waiting for us to go, you know, and then it's just going to go again, you know, hopefully, if we don't completely cock the world up before we get to that point, you know. And that's definitely another conversation, isn't it? I think we're heading that way anyway, quite rapidly.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so there's, you know, there's a real grace in the natural world, real beauty and resilience, living things, growing old gracefully. If only you could see what I've seen with your eyes, growing, never standing still, hundreds of years witnessing time pass by. So things like, you know, if only you could see what I've seen with your eyes is Blade Runner reference. So I just really like pulling in, whether it's songs or, you know, things that are snippets from films, or again, it's that almost cut and paste thing. It can be a written thing or a visual thing. It's like all these things are kind of fair game to illustrate a point, or even just to throw a spanner into the works. Like I say, going back to that thing of I think, you know, in terms of design, beautiful graphic design is just really boring for me. I just find it really, really dull. I like the stuff that's maybe a bit uglier, you know, as one thing that isn't quite right. So Escape, yeah, just write it all down, you know, just also kind of, you know, it's also just like when I've been out or when I've been in London, you know. So this was like a direct reference to, yeah, here it is. So direct reference to being down in London. So under the bridge, past the treatment works, I'm in another place now. So this is all about Walthamstow, which we used to live. A place I know, knew well. I'm not there anymore. Salt of the earth, gold rings on every finger. And that's Rod, who used to live next door to us. He used to have these, it was like a proper Cockney geezer. Pub, sticky carpets, juke machine, jukebox, fruit machine, pay out of here, out of there, here now. So this is about kind of being in London, but then now being back in at home. Yeah, so it's just this, again, just getting, you know, just, it is like I've got fights my attention, fight sounds of fights, YouTube, do you, in the tube station at midnight, avoid eye contact, avoid people, sit clear, mind the closing doors. One shuts, another opens, keep left of what? Standing still but moving, keep right, down, up. So it's all, yeah, it's just a thing, snippets of, it is like a copy and paste. I see something and then just paste it into text, and I think it becomes really rhythmic, and I just feel almost like words stumbling out that I just find really, really wonderful. Yeah, just writing for me is a real release. You know, it isn't. It's an incredibly powerful thing. Words are incredibly powerful things. How are we doing for time? Because I'm not mega off. So
You good? You good?
Good. Yeah, and then I got fascinated by these on walks. Fascinated by these would be uprooted all over the paths. and I got really obsessed by them. So I photographed loads of them, and I didn't know what they were. And I was thinking, why are people pulling up these really beautiful things? And it turns out that they're a really invasive weed, and walkers and ramblers would actually pull them up to actually stop them basically proliferating. But I just got really obsessed with them. I just think they're incredibly beautiful, fragile things, but they're incredibly invasive. So this is all about my love and hate for these what's a Himalayan weed or something it's called. But yeah, just like, again, there's so many thoughts going around in my head. And then I just love things like this. This is just pin numbers off a cash machine. I just love, how that, goes into this idea of hidden, the idea of when you're at a cash machine, you have to hide your information. But then just all these, yeah, I'd love, it is almost that copy and paste kind of thing. And how taking something that's very informational, I think, put it in a different context, it becomes something else. Yeah, so these are more kind of, that's this notion of, I really love this picture of, it goes back to that thing about nature taking over and how the roots have taken over the paving slab. So it's kind of, yeah, nature, and it's titled A Way Through. Push through, head towards the light, head first, head down, sheer force of nature. Nature wins, nature will win out in the end. We put barriers in its way, but it overcomes, it finds a way, it's resilient and it's patient. Waiting. Yeah, so yeah, I just really enjoy those little moments of nature, and sort of thinking about nature and the world that we live in. Down to something that's super ordinary. I love these buildings. They're just around the corner from us, Old People's Home. But again, this kind of no ball games. I just love all those council signs, and bringing all the things that kind of I see into something completely different. Something that's purely informational into something else, and how you can then put it in a different order, becomes something else. I just really, really enjoy. And then the last piece I'm going to talk about is chorus. This is a thing for my dad. And I'll read it out. So, light grows darker in your absence. Good days, bad days, terrible days. A void opened up in my heart. I thought you were bulletproof. I thought we'd have more time. A dawn chorus, the light before the dark. A dawn chorus, joyful, hopeful. A chorus of light and a chorus of hope. And I was out walking. I was in this little forest, and it was dawn, so it was first light, and I just felt it was really wonderful. And sort of thinking about light and dark, and thoughts about this moments of kind of slight depression about my dad and not being around, and then thinking about all the joyful things. And then I just came up with this really simple piece where it just goes from light to dark. Yeah, so it's just, I just find that sort of simple thing, and that was just from walking and thinking about stuff, and just kind of this real simplicity. And then I'm going to end on one picture, which this was, I keep thinking about this. So this is, I was going out for a walk, and I was on my way back from a walk, and I came across this, which is a dunnock on the side of the road. And it made me really stop, so many people walking past it, and it felt really sad, but also really wonderful. And it sort of really made me think about what was its life? How did it end? How did it end on the side of the road? What was its life? And this real kind of, this Superman made world and nature, and what's its place. And I genuinely just, I remember just stopping and just looking at it for ages. And then at the end, I managed to find a piece of paper, and I managed to put it under a tree, so it wasn't on the side of the road. The idea that it would be run over by a car or something was too much, you know, so I resighted it. But I was just really struck by this really, for me, really poetic image of a little dunnock on the side of a road. But it really tugged at my heartstrings. And I don't know, such a powerful image. And I think about this little bird a lot, you know. But yeah, so thank you for listening.
Well, thank you. Like I said, there's quite a few things going through my mind. I think that's, to be honest, Michael, as we said, I did not expect this as a presentation. I think as a talk, you know, I think it's wonderful to see the non-commercial side of you and hear you talk about some really personal things. I know you pitched it as a, you know, potential selfish act of art and you know, unleashing some of those things in your mind and in your heart. But I think feel very privileged to have listened to that, and thank you. I'm sure a lot of other people will really take a lot from that, both for themselves, but also in reflection of you and what you're doing. I think it's lovely.
I think it's important, you know. I think it's important to talk about stuff, you know. And I think historically I've been. Sometimes Nikki says you're a really complex character, aren't you? You know, kind of. There's a lot of things going on in my head that I perhaps don't say, you know. And it's been. Doing this has been a genuine release, and I think I would urge anybody to, you know, to either just get out and do some walking, because it's, you know, if you can, it's really helped my mental health and enable me to try and, you know, really get a lot of things out of my head and you know, really think about things. And I think it's been really valuable and really important. And I know that some of the questions that you've got for me around this.
I think it's one of those things where I will go through them, but I think for me, what you've really hit on is that, yes, we have our professional lives, that, you know, that there's been a bit of a reset that's occurred, and whether anyone is liking it or disliking it, potentially there's a time for reflection.
Yeah.
And clearly, you know, it's helped you both in terms of your time in your life right at this moment in time, but, you know, maybe some of the things that you're working through your mind and your heart. I think clearly, you know, Nikki, I've only had the pleasure of meeting her once or twice, but, you know, clearly she's helping you as well. I think, you know, your dedication to her in one of the pieces as well is great. That, you know, she's also a conduit and a sounding board to things as well, which is really important. So yeah, I think we have, because this is going to be, well, is pre-recorded for the Sunday sessions. It's I'm sure it will spark quite a bit of debate and conversation, and I really hope it does. So I'm sure it'll be moved on from here. As you said, there's a few Q&As just that we'd like to go through in terms of just making sure that everyone who's involved in the Sunday sessions just has a bit of a link back to York Design Week. We've got some themes that we're running through this week, so hopefully to bind it all together. But I'll start with activist. So do you see yourself as an activist? And if so, what is the one thing you'd like to change?
I'm not sure if I see myself as an activist, and maybe that will change, you know, kind of since I've started doing walking. I've started to read up on, I can't remember what the title of I'll try and, when it comes to being posted, I'll send a couple of links. And one's about trespass and public footpaths and rights of way in the UK. And there's a thing that's just been launched called Slowways, which is another thing which is really worth getting involved with, is the idea of the land, you know, isn't just there for the privilege, you know. And I think that's probably something that I can imagine as I get to do more walks, and I'm planning to do a lot more walking, probably some longer journeys around the country. And I think this country is such a wonderful, you know, there's so many amazing bits of this countryside that are, you know, there to explore. And maybe I mean, I haven't really come across anything where people have blocked, rights of way or anything like that. But and I know that does happen. So I think maybe just I think I'd be not necessarily an activist, but something that I just feel really passionate about is this rights of way, and sort of the country isn't just for for the privileged. It is a thing for everybody. So maybe that I think I could definitely get behind and be really passionate. I think about, and I never thought I honestly, Owen, I never thought I'd be talking about walking like this. It has been that much of a revelation for me. So yeah, I think I could see myself being quite passionate about those rights for people, and walking around the areas that we live in. And I would genuinely encourage people to go out and go down that footpath that you walked past so many times, and see where it comes out at.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier, that sense of adventure, and I think that it plays with that fear and that living, that sense of being alive. It can sometimes, a small pathway can sometimes be the biggest barrier to somewhere new or seeing a different view. So you're so right. I think it's quite a special thing. So yeah, look forward to hearing more about that at some point. I'll hold you to that.
Cool.
Second one, we've got play. Play has been shown to release endorphins, improve brain functionality, and stimulate creativity. But there is often a misconception that play is only for children as part of growing up. How do you play?
I think the play things is a really interesting aspect, and I always think that design kind of should be not in everything, but it has the impact, or it has the potential to be a lot of playful bit of design really has its place. And I think sometimes people kind of I always think that the people who go, oh yeah, can I really want to do, I do this personal work because it's a release from my commercial work. And I go, well, maybe you're just not doing your commercial work in the way, I think that should be a pleasurable experience as well. In terms of kind of play, for me, it's walking's been something that obviously is a discovery this year. But music's the big thing for me, kind of, I'm so into music, and I'm starting to learn music as well. So I've got a little thing at the back there that I'm trying to sampler and synthesizer and stuff. I'm just trying to, I really want to do an album. I really want to make an album. I listen to so much music, designed for so much, so many record sleeves over the years. That for me is this real mystery that I really want to try and unlock. Is it feels like there's. I always listen to music, and I think it's the highest for me, highest art form, if you like. The idea that notes made by somebody can make you smile, can make you cry, is incredibly powerful. And people who can make music it's such a powerful thing. So music's, I always think play for me, music is such a release, and it's something that's been a constant in my life since I was 14, 15. So yeah, music I think is the big thing. I think is just but also I completely agree with the statement that it isn't just for kids. It's, we as adults should have not just think, oh, I'm an adult now, therefore everything's serious. And it is. I always just think the world's serious enough that if you can't, enjoy something that might be completely, some people might seem childish, but as long as it makes you happy, sod everybody else, just do it,
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think, like you said, you've talked about it in the presentation, but rewild is another theme. How do you like to rewild and connect with nature and the green spaces around you?
Yeah, by just getting out the door and doing it, it's it's walking.
There's just no barrier, is there? I think that's the thing. It's free. You can just, you can wear what you like, but you're only as prepared as the stuff that you wear.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Nikki said that this morning actually. Yeah, she said exactly the same thing. Yeah, definitely. I think it is. It's one of those kind of, you don't have to. When I started walking, I had these I had some really nice Morel walking shoes, which I had for years, had been around the world in them. And then they eventually fell to bits. And then I just walked around in Adidas trainers, and I'd walk past these serious walkers, and they'd probably just look at me going, oh my God, he's, you know, in his white Adidas trainers, slipping around in mud. But I think the thing is, it's a big leveler, you know, you don't have to have all this expensive kit. It is such a genuinely, I'm going to turn into like a Ramblers Association kind of activist here, but it is just, yeah, that idea that it is for everybody. It isn't cost you the earth to do, and it's genuinely has so many benefits, you know. I mean, obviously we're a little bit harder now, isn't it, about going for a walk with friends and stuff, but it's just a really wonderful thing to do, you know, and I think it has so many benefits. But I do think, you know, as we're all going through the COVID thing, is I think more and more, I think we just need to look after our mental health, you know, and I found that that's walking's been my thing, basically, that's helped me massively. That, and alongside Headspace, which is, you know, that I've done a lot of those, and that got me through a lot of my anxiety issues, you know. That I'd really recommend anybody who's kind of going through any mental health issues to try it. It's incredible, you know. It really makes you think about your mind, and perhaps a lot of the things that we take for granted, you know. I think our mental health, and I'm not you know, not belittling anybody, but I think sometimes we almost take that for granted, you know, that everything's fine. But, you know, I think you just really need to look after what's going on in your head. It's really important.
Yeah, that sense of space, which is clearly what one thing you're finding with that meditative state of walking. That once, I mean, I think one of the pieces you had one step in front of the other. That is very much about that breathing and you know, almost clearing your mind to be able to allow certain things to come back in. But you're right. I think that, you know, it is free. People do have the ability, hopefully most people do, to be able to get out and you know, just take that one step in front of the other. But yeah, that's great. That leads quite quickly into space. Actually, we don't see space as a physical place. People make spaces. What spaces have you created this year, and what space have you found makes you happiest?
I think that it's just the outdoor space, definitely. And I found that just the idea of getting to know the area, you know, where we live, has been genuinely eye-opening and really amazing. I think you'd just be surprised how much is around in an area that you think you know relatively well. If you really start to explore it and that space opens up, I think it's just been the outdoors, really. You know, I kind of post this, I mean, we would go to work, come back, do the same. Weekends I'd be out in the garden or whatever, and that'd be fine, weather dependent, doing gardening. But, you know, kind of very much more of an indoor person, and now I think that this has been a huge shift for me. So just that outdoor space, having this, you know, I think it's proven creativity is much more heightened when you've got space around you, you know. And I think anybody, you know, I would really I've always recommended this kind of, you know, if you're stuck with something, whether you're doing designer or a student or whatever, or just somebody who has a problem, I'd go for a walk. It really just open up that, you know, that and washing up. I used to always say, just do a bit of washing up, and, you know, it's...
Yeah, some people have said to me, get the Hoover out, which I'm
yeah, so yeah, hoovering, washing up, or going for a walk. Yeah, that should solve most creative problems. Yeah.
Excellent. Trust. What do you trust in?
Nikki. Yeah, I think. Nikki. The fact that that families, you know, kind of friends. I don't think friends, family. I think all the things that kind of that we're perhaps missing a little bit now are the things that are really important. And I think, family, you know, not seeing family so much, I think, has been a really weird one. And, you know, kind of really trust their, it's just really, really heartwarming to see them. And yeah, I think just family and friends really, and having those people that you know really well is really important. So first of all, Nikki, definitely, and then family and friends. And
Yeah.
Trust that it'll all work out, you know, hopefully.
Yeah, we were talking about that the weekend, actually. We had a couple of walks out, went to YSP Saturday, and then Nostell Priory on yesterday. But we were talking about who we'd like to be catching up with at kind of post-lockdown, and because of the restrictions, you can't necessarily plan it. But as you pointed out, you know, you haven't hugged or come into contact with certain people, then you kind of think, well, you start counting out it weirdly. You're kind of going, well, I'd really like to give my mum a hug. I've not seen my sister and her family for a long time. They're down in Bedfordshire, and you kind of go, well, Zoom doesn't really cut it. We've caught up a little bit, but actually it'd be really, really good to see them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good answer.
It's going to be nice, isn't it? You know, when we can. That first, I said ages ago, that first hug's going to be incredible, isn't it?
Have to
not let go
at some point.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And then finally, share. October the 10th was Mental Health Awareness Day, and we've seen a lot of campaigns around keeping the conversation going this year, and I think clearly you've helped to do that already. It's been very isolating for many people. Have you had to learn new ways of sharing and opening up?
Yeah, I think so. I think the one thing that I've found also kind of as a positive of this, and I really hope it doesn't disappear afterwards, is that we know our neighbours a lot anyway, but there's a couple of elderly neighbours over the road. We got to know them really well, and we do their shopping. And it's just been really nice, that sense of community and getting to know people more. And I think there is this archetypal people more friendly in the north, and I genuinely believe they are. You know, we are. You know, and I'm not saying everybody else is aloof, but I've really enjoyed that sort of sense of community and sort of people really pulling together. And that's been really important, I think. And I've really learned a lot from that. I really, you know, we were saying the other day, we have a really nice garden. We were saying it'd be really nice once things are kind of, you know, either relaxed or we can do a lot more, just to get neighbours around and just chat, and family, and, you know, just interact with them a lot more. And like I say, we used to fairly interact with our neighbours, and we know a lot of neighbours and everybody around, and people in the town and that. But yeah, it's just, I think that's been a really wonderful part of this, you know, unexpected probably for a lot of people, you know, positive, is this sort of sense of community and sort of looking after each other. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. And a really beautiful way to finish, I think, Michael. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's really, really good to talk to you. Yeah, I hope. There's a lot of stuff there, isn't there? So.
I think, like I said, it will be an ongoing conversation. I think it's important that you've opened up. I feel very, like I say, very grateful that you've done that for us today, and it's been really enjoyable. So thank you so much.
Nice one. Thank you. Great.
Cheers. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.